everyone, welcome to my blog. My name is Kathy and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a mini album using envelopes as your pages. Let's get started. Okay, for this section I'm going to show you how to make the binding of the mini album. So you're going to want several pieces of cardstock cut. So cut one of them at 3 and 6 1/8. Then you cut the next one at 2.5 or 2.5 by 6 1/8. And then 2 by 6 1/8, 1.5 by 6 1/8, and then 3/4 by 6 1/8. And the next thing you're going to do is for each of the pieces of cardstock, you're going to be scoring them at 1 inch in from either side. So score it at 1 inch on this side and then 1 inch from this side. For your final piece that's 3/4 by 6 1/8, you're just going to score it at 1/2 inch. So here should be the way your 5 different cardstocks look, basically scored at the 1 inch half mark on each side. And what you're going to be doing is nestling in each of these cardstock bases into one another so that I've cut them so that you're 1/4 inch in on either side, and that just gives you room for your pages if you want to embellish them. So what you're going to be doing is adhering them in one into the next and leaving like a 1/4 inch seam on either side. So and I would recommend that you use really strong adhesive for this part because you want this binding to stay well adhered. So you could either use the red liner tape or score tape is quite strong. So this is my first piece. This is the one 3 and 6 1/8. The next one down, which is 2.5 by 6 1/8. That's this one. And all I'm going to be doing is lining it up kind of near the top edge so that it's a 1/4 inch in on either side, and then pressing it down. So that is your first one. Then you take your second one, and again it's going to go, I usually line up the top, like this top edge here, just to get it down there, and then once it's in I can just lay down the bottom piece. So there's, and then your last one, which is only 3 1/4, is and scored at the 1/2 inch mark, only gives you a 1/4 inch base that you're going to be putting in. So what you actually want to do for this one is well, again, you want to try and center it, but this, what you need to do is center it so that the 1/4 inch edge, this edge, is actually snug up against one of the other ones, and that will still create a 1/4 inch 1/4 inch between those two pages. Your own. So that is your binding with all your different page kind of lips. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking our 6 by 6 envelopes, trimming the bottoms, and actually placing each envelope over each of these lips and adhering it down, so that creates your pages. So I'm going to move on to creating the cover of the book, because it's a little bit easier to actually put this binding in the cover and then put the pages on. Okay, so what you're going to need for the front and back cover is you're going to need 2 pieces of cardstock that are cut at 6.5 by 12, and then for each of those pieces of cardstock you're going to be scoring it at 7 inches and then 9.5 inches. Once you do that and you create your folds, the front cover is going to go like this, and then the back cover, the 7 inch score, is on the bottom, and you're going to be adhering it down onto this the first 2.5 inch section, so that when you fold it, it can close like this. So what you want to do is take your front cover and at the first 2.5 inch score line, you're going to be adding the back cover and adhering it down so that it overlaps completely with the first 7 inch section over top of that 2.5 inch piece. Okay, so I have all my adhesive on this section, And I'm going to be taking my back cover and lining up the 7" by 6.5" square right up to that seam so that it's well adhered. And then when you go to close it, this is creating the outside cover of your mini album. Now what I did next is I actually wanted to reinforce all of the sections with cards, like basically not chipboard, but stronger cardstock, so that, because if you left it just like this, you're not going to have, when you actually have all your pages in it, it's going to be too weak to hold it. So actually in this what I did next is I created, for each section, I actually cut down pieces of kind of like chipboard backing, so that I could reinforce all of those pages. So what I use is this kind of like chipboard. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut down each of the sections, and I'm going to be putting this chipboard down, and then from there I can actually put patterned paper on top of it to cover up all of the chipboard, so you're not going to see it. So that's what I'm going to be doing next. So here I have completed putting my chipboard sections onto my whole mini album. So what I did is, just keep in mind that you're going to be you need the corners to be able to bend. So you don't want the chipboard pieces to meet up right directly together, because it needs to be able to bend. So what you want to do is take your section, measure it. So yours should be, if you're making the same size album, 7 by 6.5. And I made all of the chipboard pieces 6.5, but then I went by the length slightly lower. So if it's 7 inches, I went just below 7 inches by like 1/16 of an inch. So and the other thing I should mention is I actually did the back wrong. Like when you put the back cover on and you're putting it down onto your front cover, you should make sure your 7 by 6.5 piece is actually on the back, because now I've created this seam, which is okay. I'm just going to cover it with paper, but that way you'll have like a smoother piece on the back of your album. So you want to put, when you're putting the back cover on, you want to put it on the outside and actually adhere it to this section. So now what I'm going to do is decorate the inside with paper. So how I do that is I'm going to put solid or pattern paper on to the first to the first 2.5 piece, and then I'll put the rest of it on this piece so that it doesn't, so you actually can't see, it's like a smooth kind of transition. So I will cover this with my cardstock, my pattern paper, and then I will come back and we're going to put the binding in and create our pages. Okay, so now I have put pattern paper on my whole mini album. So the first section I did 9.5 by 6.5 inches and just put it on the first 2 sections. This is the front cover. And then my next one was 6.5 by 12, and I scored it at 7 and 9.5, and I scored my first piece at 7. So basically there's 2 pieces of paper that I've put down. So now I'm going to show you how to put in the binding that we had created earlier, and then we're going to be able to create our pages. So essentially this binding that we created, where you have all your nestled kind of cardstock, you're going to be adhering down in the center of this first section here on your front cover. And you want to make sure that this is fairly straight, because if it's not, when you go to put your pages, your envelopes on to create your pages, they are going to be like slightly slanted if you don't get it on straight. So you want to make sure you line up the top and the bottom edge. It's about 1/4 of an inch in from all of the sides. So now I'm going to show you how to create your pages, and then you're ready to decorate your album. In order to decorate or actually install your pages into your mini album, what I've done is I'm going to be using Close to My Heart 6x6 Colonial White envelopes. We also have white envelopes and craft envelopes, so depending on what paper you're using, you can alternate using those envelopes as well. But for this Lucy paper, I'm going to be using the Colonial White. So what you're going to do is your envelope opens and you need to trim off very slightly the bottom, because that's what's going to be going over top of the binding that we created. So I just put it in my paper trimmer and I'm just going to be trimming off a slight edge on the bottom. And so by doing that, you're going to be creating this opening at the bottom of your envelope. And then what you're going to be doing is you're going to take your envelope, and with each of your pages that your binding that you created, you're going to be putting the envelopes over top of each one of those little 1/2 inch strips that are standing up. And that's why we had to make that slightly bigger than 6 inches, because when the envelopes, in order for it to fit 6x6 cards in them, are slightly bigger than 6 inches. So what you do is you just gotta, it's getting caught on there. So take your envelope and you're going to be going right over top, so that it's right over top of the lip right here. And all I have to do is put adhesive. What I did is I put adhesive on both sides of the 1/2 inch lip, because if you don't, when you go to put like little tags or different things you're going to be putting in the envelopes, it'll go right through. So you need to put adhesive on both sides. So I'm going to put a couple of these pages on, and then I'm going to show you an album that I completed using the Scholastic paper. Okay, so here is actually the first mini album that I created for my son. So again, I used the Scholastic paper pack. And when you have the opening, like on the front cover, you might need something so that it kind of holds your album closed. So in this case, I used a magnet, but Close to My Heart also has some of the Velcro kind of circles that you could use to keep your album closed. So here is the album. Like I said, I made all these pages with different envelopes. And what I did is, in some cases, I actually closed the envelope flap so that it went inside instead of sticking out. And then I just created some tags that pulled out of the envelope. Or I would sometimes leave the envelope as an envelope, and then when you opened it up, you can have little pieces of tabs that come out to show like little. And I tried to make this album interactive. This is an album that I made for my son of all his kind of school pictures. And again, so sometimes I would have the envelope so it faced this way, and then other times I turn the envelope around so that the flap was on this side. So just, you know, play around with it however you want your album to look. But yeah, so just keep in mind that because you kind of trimmed off the bottom of the envelope, the opening might not be quite 6 inches deep. And then, yeah, so again, this is another one that I did. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and that you will certainly take the opportunity to make one of your own mini albums from scratch. They're actually really fun to make, and you can really make it any size that you want. This one just turns out to be about 7 inches by 6.5 inches, but you could make it whatever you wanted. And then I would stand your album up so that your pages don't start to warp on top of each other. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for my next video tutorial. Bye-bye.